everybody. Today we are going to be making some Andy Warhol pop art. We are going to be making a take on his Campbell's soup can artwork that we saw. So the first thing we need to do is we need to draw our soup can. So what we're going to do is we are first going to draw an ellipse, which is kind of like a flat pancake. Now you want to draw it really big. You want it to almost touch the sides of the paper, but stop just short. So watch me first. I'm going to draw like a flat pancake shape. This is going to be the top of our can, okay? I have about a finger space or two on each side of my shape that I just drew to give myself a little bit of background, but not too much. We don't want teeny tiny little mini cans on here. We want big cans. Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to draw a straight line that's going to go down about 2 finger spaces from the bottom of the paper. So straight line down, 2 finger spaces, straight line down. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight. If you want to get out a ruler, go for it. I'm not going to stop you, but straight-ish is okay with us. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to connect. Well, first we're going to check and make sure these lines are the same length. And if you look, one of mine is a little short and one of mine is a little long. So we're just going to take the short one, make it a little bit closer to the other one. Okay, now we are going to connect these two with a curved line. Now it's going to be a gentle curved line. It's barely going to be a curved line. So watch. Gentle, gentle, gentle. Like barely a curved line. Now, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to draw the Campbell's soup can label, but we're not going to like get super detailed with this. We're just going to draw a circle basically, and you want it to be like right in the middle of your soup can. So I'm going to draw a pretty large circle. If you want to get something to trace, that's fine. If you've got like a cup laying around, like this is a pretty good size cup, you can do that. You know me, I'm just gonna wing it and make it circle-ish. And if you need to erase, adjust, go ahead and do that. Mine turned out pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make the top and bottom half of that Campbell's soup can by splitting our can in half. And we're just going to do this with a straight line on either side of that circle we just drew, all the way to the side of the can. Pretty simple, right? And the last, well, there are 2 things left to do. We're going to draw one more ellipse on the top to add more detail. It's going to look more like the actual like ridge of a can of soup. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a can of soup, but there's like a little ridge on the inside. Just adds more detail. And then we are going to add the words tomato soup. Now, I want to make this really, really clear. I want you to go slow. I don't want your normal handwriting that you do in class. I don't want that. That tends to be kind of sloppy, kind of quick. This is going to be forever. This is your work of art. You're going to go slow. Even I'm going to go slow. Like, I'm going to go super slow to the point where you're like, really? That's that slow? Yes, that's slow. The slower you go, the neater your handwriting is. So that is what we want, is we want the neatest handwriting you can possibly do. So I'm going to write tomato soup. Now, after you write the tomato, you want the soup word to be pretty much like right underneath the S or the M to try to make it centered. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay, but it's just a pro tip. After you do the tomato, make sure that it's below the O or between the O and the M. See how slow I did that? So slow. Okay. Now, that is the last thing. So what you're going to do now is you're going to Sharpie over all of this, and then we will get to do painting. Now, if you do what I just did and make a mistake, you see how right there my line goes past my circle? All I'm going to do is I'm going to make this part of my circle just a little bit thicker. I'm just going to cover up that mistake, and no one's going to know that I made a mistake except everyone watching the video. So you can do that whenever you make a mistake. Just make your line a little bit thicker, and then no one will know. See? Now no one knows that I made a mistake there. You can also make your lines thicker or thinner just to make it more interesting. In art school, they like to, like art college, they like to talk about line weight and how it can make a drawing look even better if you add some thick parts and some skinny parts to your drawing. And also make sure to go over your words as well. Okay. Next step, get a big fat eraser and erase away any pencil lines that you might see. This is really important on this project because we're going to be painting. So after you paint it, you can't erase any of the pencil lines. They're like sealed on the paper with a layer of paint. So you really want to make sure now that you get any pencil lines that you might want to get rid of now, because you won't be able to once you start painting. Okay, so now we get to the fun part, painting. For painting, make sure you have your placemat. I've got my pink placemat here. You need your paints. I'm going to be using my paints, which are obviously going to be different than yours. I'm going to be using this set. And you're going to need your water, which for me is this jar of water. For you guys, it's going to be a container of some kind that I give you. And then you need paints. You need a soft, medium paintbrush. So I'm probably going to start with this. If you have like a set, things like your background, you're going to want to do with a little bit maybe thicker, wider brush, and little details like up here that might be kind of hard, you might want to do with a smaller brush, obviously. Big brush for big areas, small brush for small areas. Pretty simple, right? Alright, I don't think you'll need a paper towel or anything to dry off your brush, but if you need, you can just ask. I should have them on around. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to activate your paints. Now, the way that you guys are going to activate your paints is by taking your water, and oh, here's another tip. When you're setting up your space, you don't want your water like on one side and your paints on the other. Because when you dip your brush in the water and go to drag it over here, you might drop like little drops of water on it. So when you set up your space, you want your water and your paints to be on the same side. So you're not having to drag it over your artwork to get it, if that makes sense. So how you're going to activate your paints is you're going to dip your brush in the water. And whatever color you want, we're going to do... I'm going to let you guys do what you want with the background, but we want to stick to this color scheme for the actual soup can. So we're going to do red up here. So to do the red, to activate it, I'm going to bring it up to the camera so you can see it. This is my red. I'm going to dip my brush in the water, and then I'm going to swoosh it around. Okay? You are not jabbing your paintbrush into the paints. You're lightly with the tip of the brush swishing it around, and you want to give it a real good swoosh. Now you might need more water. Mine definitely needs more water. So I'm just going to dip it in the water again and really swoosh it around. You'll know that you've got a roll that you've swooshed a lot. If you start to see little bubbles forming, it's going to be really hard to get it on camera, but you'll see it when you start making yours. If you get little bubbles, then that means that you've swooshed it a lot and that it's probably good to go. Okay, now I'm just going to take my brush and start brushing the top part. And just like with coloring, you want to use the same rules that we use for coloring. So for the first rule for coloring is we outline a shape before we color it in, right? So I'm going to go real slow along the edges of my shape. Now, you can tell that you need to dip your brush in the paint when this starts to happen. See how it's all speckly? That means I'm dried out, I'm a desert, I need a drink, I need more paint, okay? So you're going to dip your brush back into that paint and continue. Just like with coloring, you want to try and go in the same direction. I know it's a bit harder with paint to do that, but you just try the best that you can. If you notice your paint's starting to become a little like thick, then that means that they need more water. So you just take your brush again, dip it in the water, and swish it around. And you might need to do that like several times while you're using the same color, because if you drew your soup can big enough, it's going to be a pretty big area. Also, if you need to, make sure you turn the paper. Whatever is more comfortable is what you want. So if it's more comfortable to go down, like for me, going down the paper like this is more comfortable than going up the other way. Another thing I will have at school is I will have this spray bottle. If you need your paint sprayed, I can do that too. But really just dipping it in the water and dipping it back in the brush will work too. But this helps spray all your paints all at once, which is what I'm going to do right now. So it quickly kind of, you still have to swoosh them, but it kind of activates all of them. Makes them all ready to use when you need to. Now, when you're painting, you don't want big puddles of water on your paint. Let me rephrase that. You don't want big puddles of water on your paper. You want to use the water very sparingly. The more water you use, the longer it's going to take to dry. And the whole point is that you are able to take this home at the end of the day. So if you put big giant puddles of water on your painting, then it's going to take forever to dry and you won't be able to take it home. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the Campbell's soup label. So we're going to do that a yellow color or a gold color. So it's up to you if you have, like, I have a yellow and then I have like a gold color. I think I'm going to go with the gold color and see how that turns out. Because I believe on the Campbell's soup can it's like a gold color. Ooh, yeah. Okay, the other thing I probably should have said earlier, when you are using your paintbrush, for some reason a lot of my students like to hold it at the very end and act like they're painting and like for some reason they think artists hold their paintbrushes at the end. They don't. I don't know where this myth continues. They don't. When you hold your paintbrush, you hold it just like you hold your pencil. So down by the metal cuff part, and you hold it just like a pencil. It gives you the most amount of control for your brush. That's what you want. You don't want to hold it at the end. It's just going to make it even harder. So don't do that to yourself. Don't make life harder. You don't need that. If you can, when you're painting the circle, try and go in a circular motion, not up and down, because it'll make it look even, I don't know, just make it look nicer if you go kind of painting it in a circular motion. Now, to clean your brush, you're gonna tap it on the bottom of your container, and usually like 2 or 3 times, that'll get most of the paint off. And then do not tap it on your container, on the edge of your container, because that will splatter water all over and then you'll end up getting it on your painting. And if we were working at tables, you get it on your neighbor's painting, which they would not like. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your brush and you scrape it along the side of the jar. And you're gonna think like, this isn't doing anything. It really does. It gets a lot of the excess water off of your brush so that it can be used again without tons and tons of water on it. But if you want tons and tons of water, obviously don't scrape it at the edge. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we are gonna do the top of the can. Now, this is a good point to say that if you have lots of colors, if you have like a bigger palette than I do, and you have gray, just go with gray, okay? Don't even worry about what I'm about to talk about. Just go with the gray color to do the top of the can. Now, if you're like most people and you don't have a gray color, I'm gonna show you how to make gray. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the black paint, and if you don't have black paint, no, every palette comes with black. Never mind. Everybody should have black paint. You're gonna take your brush, dip it in the black paint, obviously. Now, if I just brush this, let me get a scrap sheet of paper to make my point. If I just take this as is and brush it on a piece of paper, that's black. That's like super black. We don't want super black. We actually want kind of a gray color. So I'm gonna show you how to make a gray color. So with most paints, you don't have white, so it's not like you can add black to white to make gray, which is how you do it with most paints. What you're going to do is you're going to swish around your black, and get it nice and juicy. You're going to take the lid of your paint palette, and you are going to put some of that black down by just kind of tapping it on the lid, okay? Mine kind of is made as a paint palette, so I can scrape it along the edge too. Now what you're going to do is you're going to dip your brush in the water, tap it on the bottom, make sure to get off as much of that black paint as you can. And you just want it water on your brush, that's it. And you're gonna mix it, okay, with your black that you just put over here. Now, let's see, is this the right color? Ooh, look at that! Black, gray. Gray is the color we want, so we're gonna paint the top of that lid gray. And that was just with one dab of water. One paintbrush filled with water. And get that nice gray color. I know you're probably like, oh, this is boring, we're just following her along. True, but you're gonna get to have fun in the background, so as usual, like, you get your chance to express yourself. Okay. So one last thing we need to do. We need to add a little stripe of red at the bottom. I'm gonna clean off my brush. Get a little bit of red on my brush. And we're gonna add just one single stripe at the bottom. You gotta be real careful with this because it's gonna be really easy to mess up. So just really slowly. Oh man, hand's getting shaky. Ooh. Nailed it. Awesome. That's all we want. One stripe at the bottom. Okay, now for the background. Have fun. Do what you want. I want it painted, but you get to choose. The way I would recommend painting it, but this is just a recommendation, this does not mean you need to follow exactly what I say, is I would pick 2 colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So for example, I could do red and orange, or orange and yellow. Or you could do like warm colors or cool colors, okay? But you don't want to take colors that are totally like on opposite ends of the color wheel and use them because they don't mix in a really pretty way. Like, or if you take orange and purple, wherever the 2 of those colors meet in the painting, it's going to make this real nasty, like grayish, brownish, oogly color that we don't really like. So warm colors or cool colors, or 2 colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. I got a lot of choices here, so I'm just going to go kind of buck wild and do a bunch of different colors in the background, because that's what I feel like doing. But that is my recommendation for if you want my advice on how to paint it. So I'm going to just do like splotches of color in the background. Be real careful not to get that background color in your can. You don't, oh man, I just did the thing not to do. Oh well, it's a little bit. So when you're going along those edges, be real careful, because you don't want like blue ending up in your Campbell's soup can. Notice how I'm turning the paper as I'm painting to give myself like the easiest surface I can. Like if it feels awkward to paint it, don't paint like that. Move it to a way that feels comfortable to paint. Okay, so the way that looks. Okay, so now that it's done, I'm going to go put it to dry, and then that's that's it. You're done. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Tomato soup can, Andy Warhol. Boom, boom, boom.